It almost seems appropriate that the day I decided to film a video on Richmond Station, the sky was grey and overcast. After all the much-needed upgrades to so many Melbourne suburban train stations, one of the most important interchanges right next to the CBD has all but been forgotten. And you could easily miss the less obvious entrance if you are walking quickly. The late 1950s main entrance has low ceilings and a tired utilitarian vibe. The last upgrade was named Operation Phoenix, which was part of a huge post-war rehabilitation of Melbourne train stations, which included Richmond Station, which at the time was in a state of severe deterioration. The Richmond Station we currently have was completed in stages in the 1950s, and this is what we have today. The pedestrian subway accesses 5 ramps for 10 platforms, all colour-coded tiles, pink, green, yellow and blue, and then pink again. The first pink ramp leads to platform 1 and 2, serviced inbound and outbound by the Sandringham line only, and is isolated from the other suburban lines at the southern end of the station. This island platform overlooks the non-stop traffic of Punt Road and Olympic Boulevard. If you are unfortunate enough to be standing here in the middle of winter, bitterly cold winds house straight off the bay and blast through the gap over Punt Road, hitting you full force with no buildings to block them. Richmond ranks as the 6th busiest train station across the Melbourne rail network and 3rd for a suburban station. Most surprising is that this station is very quiet now off-peak. This is due to the recent opening of the Metro Tunnel, and that the Pakenham and Cranbourne lines have been rerouted underground. Outside this station, one notices that this inner Melbourne suburb looks and feels old. Stepping out of the northern exit into Stewart Street, you notice the high concrete walls that flank the pedestrian entrance, which date back to the 1950s rebuild. Looking up Stewart Street, unlike Melbourne's earlier Victorian-era factories that relied on riverbanks for water power, Stewart Street's industrial landscape was entirely built around rail transportation. Its unique layout featured factories directly facing Richmond Station, maximising the speed at which materials could arrive and finished goods could depart. At the back of the old Australian knitting mills, you'll find the typical wooden workers' cottages that you often see in the inner suburbs of Melbourne, a stark reminder of the social divide at the time. Built in the 1880s, they featured narrow single-fronted facades, tiny front verandas hugging the footpath, and small picket fences. This is the former Richmond South Post Office, adjacent to the Swan Street Rail overpass and opposite Richmond Station, built in 1905 by the Melbourne Public Works on a small triangular plot. It replaced the original signal box that stood on the site. As well as being a post office, it was a museum, and now it's a bar simply known as the Postie. Looking down Swan Street, the most iconic building here is Dimmy's, now a Coles supermarket. Originally a drapery store, then a bargain discount store up until 2012. The building burnt down in 1906, then it was rebuilt by the same architects that designed Myers in the Melbourne CBD. It has that typical American department store look that was so typical in the early 20th century. The clock tower with the globe on top is what defines the look of Richmond. A fun fact, the original globe was made of red glass, and each evening candles were lit inside. It could be seen for kilometres, a beacon or a retail lighthouse of sorts. So you can't really talk about Richmond Station without talking about the Swan Street Bridge. And on the day of filming, there was no one around except a few lonely souls, which also includes myself. The Swan Street Rail Bridge is a massive, gritty, heavy metal, steel truss edifice that is a gateway landmark to Richmond itself. Consisting of 5 parallel riveted steel truss structures, it supports Melbourne's busiest rail corridor. It looks like one bridge, but is actually 5. It carries the Lilydale, Belgrave, Alamein and Glen Waverley line, then the Frankston and Gippsland and the V-Line regional trains. And as previously mentioned, the Sandringham line, that's by itself. Not too long ago, I posted a query to Reddit on the Melbourne Trains Forum, asking what people actually thought about Richmond Station. One contributor said it was amazingly awful. Others that it is run down, the platforms too narrow, the ramps too steep, and the interchange passages unable to support large event crowds being right next to the MCG and Rod Laver Arena. There was a shelved $8 million upgrade in 2016 focusing on the platforms, ramps and verandas in relation to dangerous overcrowding, but was cancelled as the Metro Tunnel would fix that problem. Richmond Station is all about the vibe. Gritty, raw, heavy concrete industrial, 1950s with a no-nonsense feel, and I like it.